Impromptu reading vlog time, or impromptu listening vlog time, because I just found out about Audible Plus. Tell me I'm not the only one that didn't know this was a thing. Like, I feel like there wasn't a ton of promoting or advertising of it before the fact. I literally just logged on to my app yesterday and there it was, the feature was there, and that was the first I'd heard about it. If you don't know, Audible Plus is a little bit like Scribd or Netflix for audiobooks. Audible now offers a selection of Audible audiobooks, not their entire catalogue, for free to listen to if you are a member. So, like me, if you have a regular membership where you pay $7.99 a month, you get your 1 credit and you pick something with it, you can now listen to a bunch of audiobooks on top of that for free. And there are a ton in their catalogue that I'm interested in. So I thought, hey, why don't I do a listening vlog to the first few audiobooks I listened to and chat you through them whilst I listen. I've lost track of what I'm trying to say. I wasn't planning on filming a video today. I don't know if you can tell. I don't have washed hair or anything like that. But I've already started one because I could not resist. As soon as I saw it, I knew I needed to listen to it. And that is Horror Store by Grady Hendricks. So if you haven't heard of this book, it is a parody horror novel set overnight in a store much like IKEA. It's obviously not name branded IKEA. It's just store inspired by IKEA, where they have, you know, big warehouse feel, sell furniture, have all these mock rooms, and a group of staff members are there overnight for a special shift, which I won't ruin the premise of. It's in the beginning of the novel. It's as far as I've got at this point, to be honest, where they've been invited onto this extra double pay shift during the night, and stuff is going on. Weird stuff is going on. Weird techie stuff has been going on, but also like weird stuff has been happening to some of the furniture during the night, so they're going to investigate that. And it's a book I've wanted to read for years, because actually back when it came out, I got a copy when it came out in like 2013 or something like that, 2013, 2014 maybe. My mum read it, loved it, and then lent it to a friend, and I've never seen it again since. So this is a great opportunity for me to finally get around to reading it, and so far I'm loving the audiobook. It's really well narrated, and it suits that format. I think the physical copy would also be amazing because it's laid out a bit like an IKEA catalogue, so I'm not necessarily saying the audiobook's better, but given that I've not had to pay anything extra for it, I am so very much enjoying it. And it's not the only Grady Hendricks book on here. There's actually quite a few, and I've been meaning to read his horror for quite some time. So the other one that I'm really interested in listening to by him is My Best Friend's Exorcism, so I might listen to that. But we then also have, for example, a ton of fantasy novels by Rin Chupeco, who is again someone I've wanted to read for such a long time. So we have The Bone Witch, which is the first in, I think, a YA fantasy series that I've always meant to read, and also The Girl from the Well, which is the first in a YA horror series that I really want to read. I do own The Bone Witch, so probably not a priority to listen to an audiobook, but I don't own The Girl from the Well and have been meaning to pick up for the longest time, so why not listen to it? Not exactly for free, but it feels like free because I already had my Audible subscription, and this isn't why I'd subscribed to them, so it's like a bonus, and it feels free. I'm sure I'll get over that after a while, but right now I'm super excited. But then I also have some books here that were on my wish list, which I'm now really interested in listening to, including Beasts of the Frozen Sun by Jill Criswell, Talon by Julie Kagawa, dragon book, obviously I'm here for that. Daughters of Nrai by Rennie K. Ameo. The Red Parts, Autobiography of a Trial by Maggie Nelson, which is a semi-biographical true crime account of Maggie Nelson's aunt's court case, I think. Like, it's a family member of her who was murdered and the court case surrounding that. She also writes more literary fiction on top of that. Then there's A Stand-In by Lily Chu, which is a contemporary romance novel about someone who's mistaken for a celebrity. Sounds hilarious. And one that I'd never heard of before, but I was immediately drawn to because of the title, which is Why We Love Serial Killers: The Curious Appeal of the World's Most Savage Murderers by Scott Bond. Because this is a question I ask myself all the time. These are all books that I really want to listen to, and I'm so excited that I just suddenly have access to them all. I don't know if you can tell, I'm just like, oh my god, all these books that I didn't have access to a minute ago that I can now listen to. So I thought I'd take you along on the journey and vlog as I listen to them. Like I mentioned, already listening to Horror Store, so I'll give you some updates on that as and when I get further into it, plus when I start some more books. So yeah, let's basically experience and review the Audible Plus feature together for the first time. I will see you in the next clip. have moved from this seat at points during the day. But I'm just about to go to bed. I'm having a little cup of peppermint tea to chill out and relax. I'm feeling quite like low energy because it's that time of the month and I was up all night with stomach cramps. So looking forward to a nice long sleep tonight, but I thought I'd update you on my reading progress of Horror Store because I'm really enjoying it. I'm halfway through. It's not a very long audiobook. It's not a very long book, like I know that from having seen it. I think in total the audiobook's about 6 hours, so I have about 3 hours left. And I started it last night, and then obviously decided to vlog today. So I've been listening to sort of any chance I've had in between work, when I've been out for a walk, when I've been cooking, when I've just been sitting here chilling, and I'm really enjoying it. There has been a bit of a, well, not twist, but turn in the plot. Things have happened, but it very much feels as if there is much grander things to happen. Like this is a sort of, not red herring, but a temporary reprieve. Like, oh, have we got answers? I doubt it. I doubt so much we have answers, given that I still have half a book left and I really don't know where it's going to go. It's quite a wild ride, to be honest. Probably because it's such a fun concept. It's one of those concepts where you're like, oh, this is so unique to set a horror story, parody horror story in an IKEA-esque shopping centre store. It's not a shopping centre, store. But at the same time, when you hear about it, when you hear someone tell you that's what the book is about, you're like, how didn't somebody write about that like the year after IKEA became a thing? Like, this makes so much sense. This is like such a sort of well suited concept to horror, and particularly horror parody. So it was a really clever idea, I think, on Grady Hendricks' part. Okay, I am going to bed, but I just have to say, the kids in this book are idiots. But like, believable idiots, but idiots. Okay, I am going to sleep, but this stuff is getting darker. The horror is increasing. The horror is increasing. Alexa, play my audiobook.
Getting your selection from Audible. Resuming pause still.
So Horror Store went from like 10 to 100. It escalated so quickly. From like the halfway point, it was just so much more darker and so much more horror-esque. Like, I know it's a horror novel, but it just went there. I feel like if you enjoy the Vanishing, oh, I've forgotten what it's called. The Vanishers? I've actually forgotten what it's called. There's a YA horror book that I really like. It's got the words vanishing in it. And I will post a picture of it so you know what I mean. If you enjoyed that, then you'll probably really enjoy Horror Store. I'm not quite finished, but I don't know if I'll get another chance to update you today, so I thought I'd just check in here. So yeah, I am still really enjoying it though, but I do feel like tonally it took a massive shift from what was quite a comedic first half. Like the parody felt a lot in the first half, and now the horror feels like a lot in the second half. But still really good and really interesting. I'm intrigued to see how it all wraps up at the end, because honestly, couldn't predict it. Could not predict it. It's also just an interesting sort of look at kind of, I guess, like sort of modern day employment culture, I guess you could call it. A little bit satirical of that. Really interesting though, and well written, and like really quick to pace through, like really fast paced. But I guess it is set over the course of like 24 hours, so it's not really that surprising. But that's kind of where I'm at with my reading on Audible Plus. I'm really enjoying it. I mean, I don't know if I would subscribe to Audible purely for this service, given that it is a limited selection, and more limited, say, than something like Scribd. But I like being subscribed to Audible to pick specific books every month, and for me that's worth it. So this is a really nice added bonus, especially if I'm not subscribed all months but then decide to come back and listen to it some months and resubscribe. So yeah, so far so good. Listening updates. So I have finished Horror Store. I think I pretty much summed up a lot of my feelings in my last clip because it basically just escalated exponentially in that second half and got much more horror, dark, gory, ghosty, paranormally horror in the latter half. It's not that I didn't want that, but tonally it was quite a shift from the first half, but it's also quite a short book, so you zoom through the audiobook and I imagine zoom through the physical book as well. I thought the ending was maybe a little bit rushed, but overall I still really enjoyed it, and I would love to read some of Grady Hendricks' more recent novels because this, I believe, was their first horror novel, or at least one of their earlier ones, so it would be interesting to see how they've developed as a writer because there's a lot of potential there, some interesting themes, some really creative ideas and some good writing. I do think, like I said, maybe it was a little bit jumpy, not as in scary jumpy because that's a good thing, nothing against that, I meant like jumpy in terms of like shifting from like one tone to another and to like one scene to another, like it all happened very, very quickly, but it was still a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it. It did, like I mentioned, really remind me of Rules for Vanishing, which was that YA horror novel I was trying to remember the name of earlier, in terms of like the gore and the paranormal element. Like I think there's a lot of parallels there, so if you enjoyed that you probably enjoy Horror Store and vice versa. But obviously I'm on a horror kick because I decided to listen to another one on Audible Plus, and that is The Girl from the Well by Ren Chupeco, and I'm not terribly far into this one so far, but I am really enjoying it. It's another one with such an interesting concept, so I'm glad that I'm getting the opportunity to listen to it because this one is basically told from the perspective of the horror monster. So if you think of ghost-like spirits from films like The Grudge or The Ring, we have our Grudge or Ring type character as the protagonist. She is basically a vengeful spirit. She's a young girl who was murdered whilst she was still a child, and she has therefore become this vengeful spirit whose purpose is to punish those who kill children. So right at the beginning of the book, this is not a spoiler because it happens right at the beginning, we meet her when she is in the process of killing a man who has killed another child. And therefore she's become the spirit that avenges other murdered children. And it's been hundreds of years since she died, I believe, and she was thrown down a well, which is where the title comes from. Although I don't know terribly much more about her past, and I'm assuming it's going to be unfurled throughout the story. We're going to hear more about how she died and what happened. But the premise from the back is that her sort of existence changes when her life, well, she's not alive, but existence becomes intertwined with this young boy. So I don't know if they are then sort of wrapped up in some sort of plot. I don't really know what to expect given it's from the perspective of the monster. I mean, I feel no like anger towards her. Like, she seems perfectly within her rights to go around killing child murderers in terms of the remits of the novel, like not blaming her. And it's a really just interesting concept to follow her perspective. I really love it, like the kind of dark, creepy ghost that's in the background that surprises people, but for good reason. So I'm really into that concept so far, enjoying the writing and the storytelling, so looking forward to seeing where that goes, and I will continue to update you when I have more thoughts. Also well narrated, which is obviously incredibly important in terms of audiobooks. Both of these books have been well narrated and I've enjoyed the narrator. Audible audiobook number 2 completed. The Girl from the Well. I was just listening to it here on a little walk and I finished it up. Overall I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, which is the same as what I gave Horror Store, although I perhaps preferred it incrementally more, like incrementally, purely because I think the ending was better paced. Similarly to Horror Store, however, I was not expecting the level of gruesome and gory. While does this book go there on occasion, particularly in the descriptions of murders, and not just murders committed by spirits or killings committed by spirits, or the images of the ghosts, which can sometimes be very gruesome and gory, but the murders committed by humans. Like, there's really awful acts in this book committed by humans, murders of children and young women, and it's not nice to read about at all. But what I did think was so interesting about this book, and I loved about this book, was that what it was doing was sort of reclaiming the narrative of spirits from certain legends and myths who have sort of been damned for all eternally in our memory because of something horrendous that was done to them. So the spirit that is the central character or the narrator of a lot of this book is somebody who had horrific things done to her when she was alive hundreds of years ago, was murdered, thrown down a well, and then trapped on this plane as an avenging spirit. And then she becomes this image of sort of the ghost story of the horror film, when really she was the victim. And like I mentioned when I was talking about this book earlier, what she ends up doing is avenging other child murderers. Well, not avenging them, but taking her vengeance out on other child murderers until she meets the two central characters of this novel, who I would say are probably more central to the story than her. Well, not more central to the story than her, but it feels like it's their story because she's been around for such a long time that this is only a part of her story, and the part of her story where she meets these two characters, which is a young boy of a similar age to her and his older cousin. And she ends up hanging around the young boy because she senses some presence, I won't say any more than that because I don't want to give anything away, and discovers that perhaps she has the opportunity to save a life as opposed to avenging a life, and that's really, really interesting. But I won't, like I said, give away any more than that. That's pretty basic premise wise. There's so much more to this book, so much more complicated than that premise implies. So many layers and levels, and I thought it was really, really interesting, and the author was doing something really, really interesting. I read a lot of like myth retellings and fairy tale retellings, and this felt like a really unique sort of retelling. There's actually a sequel to this book as well, which I didn't expect, and I really don't know what to expect from, so I might check that out. I don't know if it's on Audible Plus, I'll have to check it out. But I also think that's where I'm going to end this vlog, because it's already been over a week and I have some book club reading to do, so I'm not going to be able to pick up an audiobook from Audible Plus for like another week as it is, so it would take a long time before I would wrap this up. And I think it's still been fun because it's sort of turned into a bit of like a horror listening vlog. I've reviewed a couple of horror novels, which has been fun, two quite different horror novels, but both really interesting. My thoughts on Audible Plus, what are they, you ask? Well, I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed making the most of it this past week. I've consumed two horror novels that were on my TBR as it is. It's obviously a far more limited selection than something like Script. If I wanted regular access to a ton of different audiobooks for the same price, I would subscribe to Script. But at the moment I am subscribed to Audible because that's what I'm prioritising, is choosing very specific audiobooks from obviously a almost endless selection. Pretty much anything you can get on audiobook is available on Audible, and some stuff is only available on Audible. So I have been using it for the past couple of months because I've wanted very specific things, and the fact that I'm now getting some bonus books is fantastic. I wouldn't subscribe purely for these bonus books because, like I said, of the limited selection, but if I was in the mood to listen to, 3 of them in particular one month and knew they were all there, then I would subscribe that month. Or if I was subscribed 1 month to get a specific audiobook, then I would definitely make use of it if I could find something that I wanted to listen to. And I do sort of go back and forth between being subscribed to Audible and not being subscribed to Audible. That's kind of my natural pattern as it is, so this is just like something extra to get when I'm doing that. And I think a bit like when I've talked about Kindle Unlimited in the past, having a sort of catalogue wish list saved of things that are available on these sort of mass access kind of programs means that I can make the most of them when I am subscribed, and I don't have to stay subscribed all the time, which is kind of my system. There are obviously much wider and better services than Audible Plus if you just want a wide catalogue to listen to, like I've already mentioned. But at the moment I'm subscribed, so I'm taking advantage of it. And I hope you have found this vlog interesting and have enjoyed listening to me hear about the books that I listen to. I'd love to hear if you have listened to any of them, if you have any more horror recommendations, if you have any recommendations from the Plus catalogue, because I am currently subscribed, etc, etc. It'd just be nice to chat more in the comments, and I will see you all again in the next one.